We are here at Abraham Lincoln's birthplace, where we've just sat down and talked to a couple of park rangers, and they gave us some great details about everything that there is to offer here. Hope you listen in.
Thanks for letting us come today to Abraham Lincoln Birthplace National Historical Park and talk to you all a little bit about why this is here, what people can do, all of those things. So let's start with the most obvious question. Who was Abraham Lincoln, and why is this here?
Yeah, why is he significant to this area?
Yeah.
Well, as many of y'all probably know, he was the 16th president of the United States, but the reason why it's for here is this is where pretty much it all began. This is where he was born. And we have our other unit, that's where he spent his early childhood here in Kentucky, so it's really just kind of to show those humble beginnings of this man that is known the world over.
Yeah. In this rural area of Kentucky. And this is where we're sitting right now is we have the memorial building behind you all, acres of not wilderness, but woodland behind us. There's so many things to do here. Let's start with the memorial building. What can people find when they happen into the memorial building here?
Well, as soon as they walk in those back doors in the memorial building, they're going to see our symbolic birth cabin. It's not his actual birth cabin, but it is representative of what he would have been born in. And usually, sometimes there's a ranger in there, and so the ranger will be there to help your questions, anything like that. But that symbolic cabin, people, will take a lap around it. We have a tactile in there if they want to get a closer look and appreciate the architecture too. There's really interesting architecture inside. If you look at the ceiling, there's symbolism in terms of there's 16 rosettes on the ceiling for the 16th president. So there's meaning in the building, but also the cabin itself is part of that memorial.
And the memorial was built in?
Between 1909 and 1911. That's when it was finished.
Okay. And he was the president how many years before that?
He died in 1965, so it would have been about almost 50 years.
Okay, before.
President Theodore Roosevelt was the president when the memorial was being constructed at the beginning, because the cornerstone was laid on what would have been Lincoln's 100th birthday.
That's so with the symbolism, yeah.
But it's funny because that was the last month of Theodore Roosevelt's term as president.
Oh, how interesting.
Because Inauguration Day wasn't until March at that point.
Oh, at that point in the country's history.
So it was the last month of his term.
Oh, how interesting.
And then in 1911, President Taft came for the dedication that took place on November 9th.
How interesting. So you really got to celebrate with you got to celebrate one president with two different presidents.
Yes.
There at the beginning. That's a neat kind of behind the scenes, I guess, probably not often known. So the cabin is symbolic representation of what a cabin of the time would have been like. But this property is the actual property owned by the family. And then this is two parks in one. So you all have this park that we're sitting in now, and then tell us a little bit more about the second site that's part of the same park.
So it's about 10 miles from here. It's a 15-minute drive if you're driving down there. It's the boyhood home because that is where he spent his Kentucky boyhood. He lived there about 5.5 years, from about 2 to 7.5. That's where he actually makes his first memories of Kentucky. He doesn't remember this farm because his family has to leave here when he's about 2. There's a land dispute, so Thomas Lincoln, his father, he takes his family and they lease about 30 acres of bottomland in the Knob Creek Valley where our boyhood home is today. And so his first memory made there is actually like he's planting pumpkin seeds in the back field, and they are in a floodplain by the Knob Creek, and so they see all their hard work washed away by a flood. So that's his first kind of frontier memory out there.
It's a harsh one.
Yep.
Yeah.
But things like that do teach us resilience, and he obviously had that in spades. So what can families and people who travel into the park, what can they experience when they come to both locations?
Well, when they come to the birthplace, we have our visitor center with a 15-minute film as well as a museum. There is some tactile elements, like a little cabin exhibit, as well as just like the background of the family's history, like what the genealogy aspect, as well as just where the Lincoln family has moved. We have an original table that his father, Thomas Lincoln, created because he was a very skilled woodworker. Then outside we have a couple different paths that take you up to the memorial building. We have the 56 stairs, as you can see behind us, leading up, as well as a boardwalk ramp that is accessible, takes you around the backside. But at the base of the stairs, off to the left-hand side of the memorial, we do have the sinking spring. That was the water source for the family when they were here, as well as the site is where the boundary oak would have once stood. That was the southwest corner of the property. But unfortunately, that tree is no longer standing. It did become diseased and was fully cut down in the 1980s. But we do have a little nature trail that takes you from the boundary oak to the back of the memorial.
Cool. And why 56 stairs?
That's how old he was when he died.
All the symbolism.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, trails. Since you mentioned trails, there's trails at both locations, correct? And tell us a little bit about the trails at Knob Creek.
So the main trail, there's the Overlook Trail. So that is about 3 mile round trip. It takes you 1.5 miles up to the top of a knob where you can see the whole valley. And for those who don't know what a knob is, that is just a little hill where you can see, great view of the whole Knob Creek Valley, similar to what, Abraham Lincoln probably saw when he was little living there.
So you all have the trails here and at Knob Creek, and even across the road at the picnic area, there's some trails there. So how many miles of trails do you all have altogether?
At the Big Sink Trail, which is the ones across the street at the picnic area, those are about 1.5 miles, and there are 3 different loops.
Okay.
Maybe a little less. But, so 1.5 miles plus 3 miles plus 0.3.
Yeah.
I'd say a total of maybe 5 miles altogether with all of our trails.
So that's nice little opportunities to walk around, and the picnic area, so people could bring their meal and enjoy that here. So several things to do here, just within the park.
And many people rent the pavilion out for special uses.
Okay. So you'll have that as an option too. Okay, so there's a movie. There's, of course, the memorial. You have trails. Tell us a little bit about the newly restored tavern that's also at Knob Creek.
Yeah, so we have similar kind of exhibit space in there once you go into the tavern, which is a historic tavern built in 1931 by a local family, the Howards. Park Service acquired it 2001, and 2021 is when they opened it as an exhibit space. So the really focus of that exhibit is just like frontier life and how that shaped Abraham Lincoln from a boy to a man. So that's the main focus there. And then we've also got another cabin there that is historic cabin, representative of what he would have been born in. That cabin actually belonged to the Gallagher family, who were neighbors to the Lincolns. Dates about the 1860s, so guests are welcome to go inside that cabin, unlike the one here. And we have furniture in there. They can check out kind of what that frontier setup would have looked like. There's also the backfield, preserved similar to the way that Lincolns would have farmed it. And then Knob Creek, there's a story that Lincoln almost drowned in Knob Creek when he was little, and his friend Austin Gallagher saved him. There's entries to Knob Creek that people can check out too.
And it is always really fun to see the creek at different times of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially this time of the year, it's a perfect time to get out on the trails, isn't it? The weather's cooler, and as the leaves begin to fall, you can actually see, a little bit more.
So Abraham Lincoln was here till he was about 2.
Yeah.
And then he was at your second unit at the Knob Creek Boyhood Home till he was about 7.
Yes. They moved to Indiana from that site in December of 1816. So almost 8, just a couple months shy.
What else would you like us to know?
We really don't know a lot from Abraham Lincoln himself about his time in Kentucky, because he was a young boy and he really didn't talk a lot about his early childhood. But probably one of my favorite stories from him that he actually shared was, he was a young boy. He's probably that 6, 7 years old, and he was out fishing. As he's coming back home, he comes across a soldier on the road, and he was always told to be kind to the soldiers. So he gives the soldier his fish. I just think that's a super sweet and telling story.
I love that. Good foundations.
Yeah.
Go a long way. And you all have worked at the park now for a while. I'm sure there's so many things you all have discovered while you've been working here. What is something that was fascinating to you, like that story?
Yeah.
You know, what's been some things about Lincoln's life or these parks that really interested you and you would like to share with other people?
I think coming here for me, it was really interesting to learn about, the public memory aspect of how this place began as a memorial. The fact that Lincoln Farm Association, that is the group that made ground on all this, what they really set out to do was memorialize Lincoln, as we talked about his humble origins. So from the outside, we see kind of, that stately building that speaks to his legacy as our 16th president, man who freed the enslaved, preserved the Union. But inside we see where he came from, and that's the symbolic birth cabin, such a little humble cabin that, really is a testament to the power of democracy, or he can rise from something like that to become the 16th president. And I think that's, working here, that was powerful, to actually come here and see it in a way that's different than just learning about it and the mythology behind it.
Yeah.
It's a great takeaway.
I like just learning about him and his family and where he came from. I liked studying the genealogy and all that history, and the fact that his father actually owned other property before the Sinking Spring Farm, and what's now part of the base at Fort Knox. That's where his grandmother, his an aunt and uncle, they all lived, and that's where they're buried. I just think that's neat how it's all just interconnected, as well as the fact that there's a state park not too far away about his uncle Mordecai. The fact that all of this family is still so rooted in the history of this area, and it's not just Abraham Lincoln, there's more to him, and this is just the beginning of what he eventually became.
Yeah. And we have recently been to the Mary Todd Lincoln House in Lexington. We have been to the state park and read and explored all of that. But you're right, so much of the Kentucky history, that's fascinating that some of his family, or that his dad owned what is part of now the Fort Knox base.
At one point, yeah.
At one point. So much of the Kentucky history, everything is intertwined. We recently did a podcast at Locust Grove and didn't realize until then that the Crons who owned Locust Grove, of course, were connected to Mammoth Cave National Park and owned it too. So I think the more we do delve into history in Kentucky, it's just fascinating how many connections there are. Which makes sense because there were fewer people here and everybody had to rely on each other and be more connected at a time, at that period of American history and Kentucky history, I guess, entire as well. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us for a little while and letting us know why Abraham Lincoln's birthplace makes a great road trip. Lots of things that people can do here, lots of history they can delve into. One thing about the tavern, we got to visit there recently, and there's just so much good history to. You all do, I think, a great job. Of course, the national park interpretation is paramount for you all, I know, but you all do a great job of sharing the history in digestible pieces that people can even interact with. I noticed at the tavern there's several interactive exhibits for not just kids. I love to do those things too, so you all have done a lovely job with all of that. So anything else you want to ask?
I think, both sites are gorgeous, beautiful places. Definitely could come and spend an entire day at both sites, and especially this time of the year when the weather's getting a little bit cooler, it's a great time to get out. So I'd really like to encourage anyone that haven't been to either site to check these out. They're awesome.
Yeah, and you all, of course, are in Hodgenville, which is in LaRue County, and there's several other things people can do. So where can people find more information out about when to visit, how to visit, what to consider before they visit?
I definitely say check out our socials. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and X or Twitter, depending on what you think of it as. It's on all three of those platforms. We pretty much put the same information because there's that character limit on X.
Of course, right.
But that's all available on those three platforms.
Lincoln Birthplace NPS on socials. And then your website also?
Right, our website will have park hours for both units of the park, and then we've got news releases, everything. If you're looking for trail closures, anything, that'll be on the website too.
Great information. Yeah.
And any other information that you're wanting to use for planning, it's got all that background information on the website too.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you.